Welcome to Truth Telling with Elizabeth D'Alto, the podcast dedicated to focusing on the truth that is always evolving within us and around us, where we explore the potentiality of truth as a highly esteemed value at a time in history when most people have more on their plates than any one human should. If you're new to me, full expression is my jam. Some words people have used to describe me range from speaker, trainer, coach, healer, writer, spiritual advisor, teacher, podcaster, and someone even called me their soul Sherpa once. I'm less concerned with titles or labels and more interested in results, change, and creating a world we want to, can, and are proud to live in. A kinder, gentler, more curious, collaborative, reverent world where people respect each other's backgrounds, experiences, and truths. They trust in themselves, in life, and recognize that we need each other. And they know how to cultivate healthy relationships to true power, not the very unhealthy kind of power our current culture is predicated upon. Speaking of our culture, there's a lot of noise and ignorance in our current culture, and this show aims to cut through that by exploring the truths of a diverse range of incredible voices. From authors, artists, creatives, and educators to activists, speakers, and those in various scientific and esoteric fields, our guests hail from cultures and countries all over the world. We post a new interview every Monday, and if you want to keep up with the show notes and quotes from our guests, you can follow me on Instagram at Elizabeth D'Alto. You can expect a wide range of topics when you tune into this show. Everything from health, communication, money, success, parenting, desire, sex, love, and spirituality, to making pivots and transitions in life, and topics related to psychology, storytelling, gender and race issues, emotional intelligence, activism, advocacy, and much more. A few disclaimers. No episode of the show is meant for everyone, and every episode is meant for whoever needs it on the right day at the right time. Not all guest views will reflect my own, and that's intentional. We don't learn, grow, heal, or improve by staying in our comfortable bubbles with all of our people who look, think, or live exactly how we do. If you love what you hear and find it useful and inspiring, the best way to show your appreciation is to share the episode, subscribe to the show, and leave us a rating and review wherever you listen in from. Thank you so much for being here with me. Here we go. This is episode number 281 of Truth Telling with Elizabeth D'Alto, which is also episode 1 in a 6-week series that starts today called Journey into the Wild Soul. This is the first time I've done this, and this is something I look forward to being able to do year in and year out, specifically during this time of year, to create a reset, an attunement, a tap in. And really, the way I described it when I posted about it on social media today that I'm recording this is to create an experience that allows you to explore your inner world in a way that can help create a much better experience in your outer world. And then I also added, that's putting it very mildly. So I'm excited you're here. I'm excited to have you. As well, I want to invite you during this 6-week series. I'm also opening up a pop-up Facebook group, and I will give you the link to go over and join all of that later on if you want to gather in community with me and other wild soul women like you all over the world over the course of the next 6 weeks as we dive into what I have planned. So before we get into it, I wanted to tell you about this mystic journaling practice that I do. What I do is I sit down with my laptop and open a fresh Evernote document. I invoke the divine beings who love and support me unconditionally, as well as their protection, so the highest and most aligned guidance can come through. And then if I have a question or something I'm focusing on for the day, I'll ask it. If not, I'll just go for general guidance or ask what I need to be inspired around for the day. Then what I do is I close my eyes, relax my mind, open my heart, and begin typing. So the other day, as I was feeling into how to begin this journey into the Wild Soul series, this is what came through. I ain't here to please. I'm learning how to pace myself in life, love, communication, in pleasure, in consumption, in expression. I'm not always easy to be around, and I just can't care. I'm here to do my sacred work in the world. Every day, I tune in and I listen. I ask how I can be of service, and then I am shown. So my work and my show and my programs and workshops reflect this. I don't leave out God or the earth, sun, moon, and stars. I don't gloss over the divine beings who love me unconditionally and assist me daily. I'm done pretending I'm not a mystic or a priestess. I am both. I have been both for lifetimes. It's not a big deal. It doesn't make me special. It's just who and what I am. I'm here to invite you to feel into what's real, true, supportive, and nourishing for you also. To connect with who you are, to claim your birthright and your divine right, and to do it in a way that doesn't step on, harm, or drag down others as you climb. There's a saying, I don't know where it originated, but I love it, lift while you climb. That. I don't care if you believe what I believe. I care that we walk each other home, as Ram Dass said. I care that together we cultivate integrity worth modeling. I care that we keep each other accountable and committed to being forces for expansion, for love, for good, and for healing for this entire lifetime we're sharing right now. Not while it's, quote, trendy, definitely not as a marketing strategy, but because we're children of God. We're all sacred and worthy of love, and the systems we've all come up in are hardwired to keep us fighting and forgetting. And so, in any way that I can, I'm going to do my best to be a beacon for remembering. So I'm just going to leave that as it is. That was the raw expression, and in a way, an intention for this series and an invocation for the next 6 weeks. The other thing I want to read you, which some of you who've been listening for a while will already be familiar with, is the Wild Soul Woman Manifesto. In all of my work, I'm really big on reminding people to stay connected to their own values and priorities. I wrote this manifesto in the fall of 2016. It's basically the totality of what I aim to live into and invite you all to live into every time you listen to an episode of this show, read something I post on social media, come to a workshop, or take one of my programs. This is what it's all about. I am a woman, not a lovelier version of a man. I am devoted to loving myself in the untamed way, through cultivating self-acceptance, awareness, knowledge, respect, and trust. I am committed to discovering and living into my ever-evolving truth. The truth of what it means to be a woman in the 21st century. The truth of what it means to be me, the me that I am. Not that society, culture, family, government, religion, or other structures have dictated to me. I am discerning. I listen to my wild soul and trust her innate wisdom and guidance. I have boundaries. I do not sacrifice myself for the benefit of others. I say no when I mean no and yes when I mean yes. I am just as worthy of my own time, energy, and attention as all of my loved ones. I am a loved one. I do not need others to be different or agree with me for me to feel okay. I do my best to respect others' beliefs, opinions, cultures, choices, self-expression, and sexuality, even if I don't understand. I am a global sister. I'm a safe place to land for all life and all people. I know that it's not all about me, but that it does start with me, and I happily accept responsibility for my own life. I am a work in progress and a work of art. My body is sacred. I'm willing to have courageous conversations. I embrace my uniqueness, my power, my beauty, my creativity, my inner fire, my passion, my fierceness, and my softness. I reserve the right to change my mind. When I want to be harsh with myself, I choose gentleness instead. I honor the earth and all her creations. I am unashamed. I trust that my temporary circumstances never have to be my permanent reality. I am a powerful creator. I am receptive. I am a force for expansion, for love, for good, and for healing. I am a wild soul woman. Like anything I do and share, it's not perfect, but it's pretty damn solid. So to get into the episode of this 6-week series, this first episode, I want to share the intention. Journey into the Wild Soul is about reflecting on the year we've just had and perhaps years previous, so that we can leave the past in the past as we transition into a new year. This has actually been one of my mantras this year. This came in during the summer. It is safe for me to leave the past in the past. So that's part of it. As well, I want to invite you to consider if how you've been going about your growth, healing, and transformation is really effective, or if it's more performative, obligatory, inefficient, ineffective, or just a distraction. Being in this industry for almost a decade now, I started my first blog in 2019. I see so many people stuck in the hamster wheel of consumption, whether that's podcasts, books, courses, which, by the way, people don't always finish or don't even start in some cases. I see people feeling like they need to always be working on something, excavating for something else to fix, and rarely resting in the satisfaction of work well done and just being the person they've strived so hard to become. One of the reasons I actually stopped running year-round free Facebook groups last year is because it began to feel like a tool for enablement, not for empowerment. And I'm here for empowerment, not to empower you because I can't do that for you, but to help you empower yourself, because that's the only way it can truly, deeply occur. So we'll talk about that over the next 6 weeks, approaching it from different angles with the intention of helping you connect to the love and truth inside of you. As well, some of you also know I retired the original version of my signature Wild Soul Movement virtual program earlier this year. So I'll share some of the details about the updated and upgraded version, which starts in January 2019. And by the way, I know I've been talking about this. Some of you have been literally waiting with bated breath. I've been getting your messages. It's so sweet. Your emails, your Instagram DMs and stuff like that. And I was going to wait until this Friday, which if you're listening in real time, this Friday, November 23rd, is Black Friday here in the US. I was going to wait till Friday, but I'm just going to tell you now. The new name of the program, formerly known as the Wild Soul Movement Virtual Program, is just one word. I'm getting a little emotional, and it's just power. It is a year-long women's circle. And it's actually always been built to be a year-long thing because there's 4 topics that we explore: surrender and release, trust and receptivity, wild dreaming and desire, and love and truth. And there's 4 seasons. So we're going to go through each topic. We're going to spend a season on each topic. The way we explore each topic is through mantras and movement practices and journaling, reflection questions, and other things. This year I'm adding in some prayers and some guided visualizations. But there's 12 mantras and 12 months. So we'll get to spend a month on each mantra. And that's all I'll tell you for now. The full details will be available on Friday, November 23rd. And I'll be doing a short pre-registration period between the 23rd and the 26th, which is that big Black Friday, Small Business Saturday, Cyber Monday weekend. And so you can save some money if you want to enroll, and the circle starts on January 3rd. And if you do happen to join this coming weekend, there is some pre-work that will be loaded up in the member area for you to get started on throughout the month of December. So as well, also this Black Friday through Cyber Monday weekends, if you are someone who has been wanting to come to one of my live weekend workshops, I will be giving a $50 discount on those workshops. And I'm running 12 of them in 2019. The locations aren't all set yet, but the cities are. And after running 11 of these over the last 2 years, I've got the format dialed in, and I'm excited as well in 2019 to bring them over to Europe and Australia. And actually here, I can give you the list of cities right now just so you can start thinking about if any of these are near you or a place you want to visit. So we'll kick off in February, the 9th and the 10th in Houston, Texas. March 9th and 10th will be Los Angeles. March 30th and 31st will be Brisbane, Australia. April 6th to 7th will be Melbourne, Australia. May 10th to 11th will be Boston, Massachusetts. May 17th to 18th will be somewhere in New York City. June 22nd to 23rd will be San Diego. July 27th to 28th will be in somewhere in London or in the UK. August 17th to 18th will be Chicago. August 10th and 11th will be Toronto. September 21st to 22nd will be the Bay Area. And then October 19th to 20th will be Atlanta, Georgia. Super excited, basically, to do a world tour in 2019. I look forward to meeting so many of you in real life. That's always so fun to get to hug you in person. So again, if you are listening in real time, mark your calendar for this Black Friday here in the US. It's November 23rd through Cyber Monday, Monday the 26th. And by the way, if you want to just get on the wait list and be sure that you get an email notification, you can go to wildsoulmovement.com/waitlist. So let's really kick off this journey I want to talk about the new year for a moment. The new year is a calendar thing, but seasonally, here in the Northern Hemisphere, where I'm coming from right now, it's actually almost winter. And actually, by the time the new year rolls around, we already have winter solstice, so it will be the winter. And winter is not the time of year to be hitting the ground running. And even for those in the Southern Hemisphere, right now is spring for you. This is a time for blooming, not shining full out quite yet, the way summer invites us to. So the energy of this particular time of year, no matter where you live, is supportive and conducive to the journey I'm inviting you on over the next few weeks in this podcast series. And that's intentional. The question I used to start the show with, when it was still called Untame the Wild Soul up until the end of 2016, up until the end of 2017, was what do you love about being a woman? And if someone were to ask me that right now, my answer would be cycles within cycles, meaning all the layers of cycles that we get to honor and track if we choose to inform our lives in a more organic way. So seasons of the year are a cycle. For women who bleed, there's the menstrual cycle. For those who follow the moon, there's the lunar cycle. As well as in our lives, we have our own cycles based on our birth charts. There are so many ways to zoom in and out and feel out and in our life experience and journey, and I love that. And it doesn't have to be or feel complex. It could just be wild and natural the way it truly is. To spend another minute on this, here's a deeper example. Just like the menstrual cycle, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, this fall, autumn season that we're in, this is like PMS. This is the premenstrual phase. This is the descent, as I like to think of it, a time where your energy might be a little bit lower. It's a time for wrapping up loose ends. And season-wise, this correlates to it's darker earlier. And this is also like the waning moon. There's less light in the sky at night. And darkness isn't bad. I've learned to embrace the literal darkness of fall, PMS, and the waning moon, and take it as an invitation to go inward, to look under my own hood and see what's there for me to mine and either release, transmute, embrace, or embody. So this season invites us into patience and reflection, and I'll talk more about both of those things in this episode. It also calls us into consideration and deep feeling, which, let's be honest, if you're here in my audience, you're likely inclined to deep feeling anyway. And by the way, you know I love divine timing and synchronicity if you're a regular listener. I was going to record this yesterday, which would have been Thursday, November 15th, but I didn't. And if I had, I would have missed this incredible article one of our listeners posted on Facebook about feeling intensely. I'll link it up in the show notes, which are at untameyourself.com/281, because it was so good. I related to so much of it, and I have a feeling a lot of you will as well. Not all of you, though. I know empaths and sensitive folks are in like the center of the bell curve of my listenership here, but not the entire population. So I'm not over-glorifying that. I just want to acknowledge it. Now, if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, this is the time of year when the seed has been germinating and it's slowly peeking out of the earth. Emphasis on slowly. It takes a lot of energy for the seed to break through the soil, physically and metaphorically. So take that into consideration as you listen here over the next 6 weeks. This, for you in the Southern Hemisphere, is like the waxing moon phase, moving towards fullness, moving towards ultimate brightness, but not exactly there yet, and not a time to force it or rush it either. I have clients come to me sometimes who are so busy and have such full lives, not because everything they're doing is crucial, but by design, so they don't have to face themselves. And for some people that's conscious, for some people it's not. And I've had people tell me like they take walks, but they can't do it without headphones. They have to have a podcast or music or something to listen to so they don't have to be with their own thoughts. So this journey invites you into the recesses of your body, mind, heart, and soul, no matter where you live or what's going on in your life. And I've got a little bonus way to support you through the end of the year. As many of you know, I used to run really popular free Facebook groups. Thousands of women were in these groups back between 2013 and 2017. And I can't run them full-time anymore, but during this series, there's a pop-up group so that we can gather together, connect, discuss, support each other, and commune around what I'll be talking about in the series. So if you want to join that Facebook group and be part of the discussion, you can find it by going to wildsoulmovement.com pop-up FB, as in pop-up Facebook. So wildsoulmovement.com/pop-up FB. And it'll be open from now. I'm opening it Monday, November 19th, and it'll close on December 29th, which is a Monday, right? No, that's a Saturday. Okay, so there's that. And the last thing you can expect during this series is to meet some Wild Soul women who've been with me for many years now. I interviewed a few so they can share their journeys and experiences with you as well, just to give you a frame of reference for what's possible, desirable, available, and worth pursuing as you consider what your intentions are for 2019, what you want to create, who you want to be, maybe update your values and priorities, let some things go, invite some things in. And I know you all love our interviews because you get exposed to a variety of perspectives. I'm constantly getting notes from people that they meet the most amazing people. They discover the most amazing people through our guests. And I love that. And I'm also excited to offer that during this series in a different way. The Wild Soul women I've invited to share with you aren't necessarily like our regular guests who are experts or leaders in their field. These are everyday women who, like you, listening, are all extraordinary in their own ways as well. So to dive in for the rest of the episode, I want to focus on some reflections. And these questions, don't worry about like pausing or taking notes. I know some of you are probably listening, as you're getting ready in the morning, or maybe you're in your car or on your commute, or, doing something in your house, cleaning, doing the dishes or whatever. So don't worry about having to like take notes or anything. I will post these in that pop-up Facebook group again, so we can continue this conversation beyond the episode as a community together. But for now, I'll go first to get us started. So here's the questions. As you're reflecting either on 2018 or like the last phase or cycle of your year that feels significant, of your life rather, that feels significant. So what really worked for you and what didn't? As well, what's really working for you right now and what isn't? What did you learn about yourself or about life or about people? What themes did you intend? Like, did you pick a theme of the year? Or maybe what themes emerged? And either way, how did those themes serve you? So these are the questions. Now, I'm not going to go through every question individually. That feels a little self-indulgent to me. But I will share some highlights and then invite you to dive into the questions again inside of the Facebook group, however you'd like to, or just do your own little private exploration. Not little, but private exploration on your own. So, patience. Oh my goodness, this year I've been cultivating patience for over a decade. I've known that I was impatient, and I've really been working on it. But this year, something clicked in. Patience started to feel so nourishing to me, as well as something I've been talking about since last year, and we'll link to this episode in the show notes. I did a Sunday sermon on it last year, something I have come to coin as holy consistency, right? There are the things that we do consistently because we think we need to or we're supposed to. That's like obligatory consistency. But holy consistency is when we show up with an energy of like devotion and commitment to cultivate habits and practices that really nourish us and really support us. And patience is a part of that, because part of cultivating the holy consistency and bringing the energy of devotion into it is just understanding that you're not going to be perfect every day. And I'll give you an example. Back in September, I was feeling like, I've been someone who's been meditating for many years now, probably like maybe 8 years, 9 years. But I've done all kinds of like miscellaneous meditations. I've made up my own meditations. I've followed guided meditations. But in September, I really wanted a system. I wanted something I could do consistently, reliably, that would really work for me, specifically to create space between my thoughts, to relax my mind. I have a very overactive mind, but also a very creative mind. And so I needed some space. I wanted to be able to honor the creativity and honor everything that's constantly pouring through me, and not feel anxious or overwhelmed about it, because that happens sometimes. Maybe some of you can relate if you have one of these active minds as well. Sometimes it just feels like it's a fire hose. Like there's so much pouring through, I can't even keep up with it. And then I'll feel a little anxious sometimes that I might miss something. So I really wanted to be able to find a supportive meditation that would help me. do all of that, navigate all that better. So I went to the training, the 4-day training, and I learned how to do transcendental meditation. And it's just absolutely been changing my life. And, I have a pretty consistent practice going. I started on September 24th. At the time of recording, it's November 16th. And I've probably only missed about 4 or 5 days of meditation since. My longest streak was 16 days in a row. And I share that because I've never been that consistent with meditation before. And that's the holy consistency. But when we're making choices that are really aligned with our desires and we're tuning in and tapping into what we need, that's what makes it holy. Because it's nourishing and it is for us based on our own intuition and desires and inclinations, not by like the outside world telling us that we need something or should do something. So that's been really, really helpful. And also with the patience. And where patience is relevant there is to not beat myself up. The days that I missed the meditation, it's just not that big of a deal. I'm not like, oh, what's wrong with you? I'm just like, okay, let's get back on track tomorrow. So that's the patience. And what I love about patience, and this is something I emphasize a lot in all of my work, is gentleness too. When we're patient with ourselves, patience is an expression of gentleness. And, even if you're listening right now, just like take a deep breath. And whether you say it out loud or just to yourself, like just think the word patience and then just think the word gentleness and then just notice how you feel in your body. Like you probably relax, even if it was just like 1% more relaxed than before, it makes a difference. This stuff matters. And as well, part of what also goes with patience is just slowing down. And I feel like this is also something I've been doing, honestly, for 6 years, almost 6 years now, since I moved to California, since I moved out of New York. My whole life, I've been like hustle, go, go, go. And in the past 6 years, a lot more emphasis on like slowing down, listening, taking my time. And this year, that really integrated as my primary way of being rather than something I was aspiring to. And that has just felt monumental, certainly infused with grace. Like, I think there's a lot of things. I remember back in episode, I think it's 260 with my friend KJ, we talked about forgiveness and how deep forgiveness is only possible, with a little bit of grace. Like we can do only so much work, but then eventually we need that like little bit of grace to come through and kind of like finish it out for us. And I feel like I needed that as well in my journey with patience. So that was a thing. And dating, y'all, some of you have heard me talk about this. I started dating this year for like truly intentionally the first time ever in my life. Like I went on more first dates this year than I've gone on like literally my entire life. When I was in my 20s, I would just meet people through friends or at events or whatever. We would just hang out and I would end up in relationships. I say end up like it happened to me, but it just had not occurred to me before that I could take my time and just really develop care, even fall in love with people. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I have to be in a committed monogamous relationship with them right away. And that's what I've always done. And so what's kind of fun right now, I'm actually even exploring whether or not I want to be a monogamous person, which is hilarious because non-monogamy is something I had so much judgment about when I was living down in San Diego. You've probably heard me talk about it. And that's mainly because it was in a community and I saw some really unhealthy expressions of it. But I came to learn this year that some of my friends are in open relationships, even marriages, and it works beautifully. And they have agreements that work, and they really honor the privacy and the sanctity of it, which is why I didn't even know. Like literally, I was friends with some people for years, and I just found this out this year as I was in my own inquiry, and they shared their experiences with me. So I'm like, maybe there's a way to do this that's a lot more energetically clean and supportive. So I'm trying it out. I'm basically having the time of my life here in my mid-30s of having all kinds of freedom and flexibility to test things out because I don't want kids. I'm not in a rush. At this point, I don't even know if I want to be married. So, and something I've noticed with every partner I've ever had is kind of wishing I could sprinkle in some qualities of other men. So my big question mark going into 2019 in this area is, what if I don't want a partner, but a roster? I enjoy saying that so much. And listen, we'll see. The jury is still very much out. I have no idea if I'm built for it, but the thing I know is if I'm going to find out, I have to try it. So I'm taking my exploration very slowly, very responsibly, and using my embodiment practices that I have been cultivating and deepening for 5 years now, that I've been teaching and developing and honing and refining the Wild Soul Movement practice, which is really fun. So also related to my body, it's been many years, I got back into working out consistently. And the reason I was able to get back into it is because the focus and emphasis was just on sweating as a detox, and also literally for my mental and emotional health. I am not exercising because I want to lose weight. I'm not out here trying to get tight and lean, or all these words that I used to use when I was a fitness person. I'm trying to move my intense feelings through my body. And I've noticed that things like boxing and hot yoga, there's something about the sweat that's really detoxing for me, that really works for me. And back in August when I started, I wanted to box. Oh man, my first several classes, I would just cry. By the end of class, I would be crying because emotions would just be moving through me, grief, anger, sadness, and it wasn't even connected to anything. It's not like I'm punching the boxing bag, imagining someone's face. It wasn't that at all. It was just moving through, which is, one of the things that I teach in my programs is how to just be with your emotions, how to just ride the waves of your emotions, especially as a deep feeling, highly sensitive person. And so I tested out a few studios. I found the ones that work for me. I tested out a bunch of instructors. I found my favorites. So that's been one of my biggest lessons this year as well, not just in this context or dating, but I have to test things out. I have to taste and sample things before I commit. Over the years, I've started and stopped so many things. One of my mentors actually tried to work on this with me. But her approach, it wasn't that it was forceful, but she was kind of wanting me to follow through on things I knew in my bones weren't right for me, just for the purpose of following through. And that doesn't work for me. When I know, I know. So what I realized this year is instead of making big commitments up front and then realizing I had to quit part of the way through, I just need to try things out first. Take my time, feel them out, and then decide if I want to commit. It's a much better approach for me. And you might be different. So try that on if it feels right to you, but feel free to discard it if you know that's not how you roll. Part of how I learned this is through a big project I did earlier this year. Some of you might remember it. It was called the Trust Assessment. I invested so much time, effort, energy, and attention in developing this 64-question assessment and this whole series of things and emails you would get, and this advanced workshop I was running, and all this stuff. And after about a month, I realized I didn't want to be doing it. And so I walked away from that, and that was kind of the last straw for me. I was like, I gotta stop doing this. And so business-wise, for those who are entrepreneurs and are interested, this year I finally realized I don't need any more business coaches either. God is my business coach. I spent $10,000 on a workshop intensive thing this year that ended up being a total waste. Not because it wasn't a quality program, but because it's just not what I needed. It was a shiny object, and that's way too much money to spend on a shiny object that I didn't even end up using. So I've stopped entertaining those investments. From now on, if I'm investing in my business, I'm investing in implementers, people who are excellent at things that I am not and things that I need support in. And again, I'm not recommending this to you as advice. I'm giving you my own reflection. I'm offering up my experience. And also, if you're taking that in, I do want to remind you, I'm 7 years into this business. If you're brand new, you might still need some coaching, guidance, or mentorship. I personally no longer do, not in a formal capacity anyway. I've gotten so many brilliant friends like Molly Mahar, who you will meet on the podcast in January, who I could just drop in with and work out the kinks and bounce ideas off her and get exactly what I need, because she also has been running her business for 7 or 8 years, and we're in similar lanes. Our former podcast guest, Barry Tesler, I got on the phone with Barry in the summer and I was like, hey, can you help me dial in? I'm super curious about your business model. And so I've been much more into that kind of peer and colleague support than these coaches who are just trying to push their formulas and frameworks on people. It doesn't work for me. And that's another theme that emerged for me this year. And it's funny because one of the mantras in Wild Soul Movement, which I updated, for the new power circle experience, I updated some of the mantras, and this one is something that got updated. But the old former version of it is, I'm always surrounded by everything that I need. And I decided to really live into this one this year. And anytime I felt like I didn't have something I needed, I paused and really took stock of the possibility that I did before searching outwardly for it. And I can't tell you how often I truly already did have, or at least have access to things that I needed. And one of the big components of that was that it didn't look, to get the need met, didn't look the way I was thinking it had to. And on the very simplest level, I'll give you a very, very, very basic, like bottom of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs triangle example. You know, I eat out a lot. It's just something I budget for. It's just easier for me time-wise. I love to cook, and I actually have been cooking way more this year. But sometimes I'll be like, it's the middle of the day. I'm hungry. I've been working. Let me, run out over to the grocery store. Let me go grab something to eat. And then I'll be like, wait, what do I have in my house? And this was also part of something that I did this year. I just started treating food much more as like a functional thing than like a form thing. Like literally just as nutrition. I stopped trying to derive so much of my pleasure and enjoyment from food, or leaning into it as an emotional crutch, and in some cases even a distraction. And I was just like, let it be functional. So yeah, there would be plenty of days where I'd be like, I'm really in the mood for ... And I'd be like, but what do I have in the house? And what I might have had in the house was like smoothie ingredients. And it's like, you know what? This is actually the best nutrition I could possibly have anyway. So I just threw a bunch of amazing things in the blender and had a smoothie, because the true need was that I was hungry, right? I didn't need to like go get the thing I was in the mood for. I just needed to eat so I could get on with my day. And so that's a very, very basic example of what I'm talking about, of being like, I'm always surrounded by everything that I need. It's like, listen, why am I feeling like I need to stop my whole day, go to the store, indulge this craving, blah, blah, blah. Let me just have a smoothie and move on with it. So this mantra, I'm always surrounded by everything I need, also brings me to the Wild Soul Movement practice. This is so even though I've renamed the actual year-long experience and its power now, the core practice that drives the whole thing is still the Wild Soul Movement practice. And I have to tell you, this isn't just something that I like created and teach to people. This is something I do myself all of the time, several times a week. It literally keeps me going because it's an embodiment practice. It's a metaphysical practice. If you want it to be, it could be a spiritual practice. It connects in your mind, your body, your heart, and your soul. It integrates all of that. It helps keep your mind and your body in check. It helps to reprogram and question your thoughts, gives you space to listen and be with yourself, to also have a different experience of inhabiting a woman's body and the friggin' miracle that is. So like, this is my practice for life. A couple other things I did this year. I didn't travel as much. And as well, I followed my intuition to move out of Malibu when I started to feel isolated and like it was no longer my place, which I'm so grateful for that this week in particular. Malibu was one of the hardest hit spots in the most recent wildfires in California. And I literally would have been right up in the middle of that. I actually texted my old landlord the other day to see how my old place was doing, and he didn't even know because they weren't allowed back in yet. So I feel incredibly grateful to not have to be dealing with that experience right now. I moved into Marina Del Rey in California, which what I was really desiring was to like integrate my East Coast and my West Coast experience. I love being in nature. I love being by the water, but I wanted to be in a more walkable neighborhood. I wanted to be able to get a bike and ride around and not have to like drive everywhere. That's been so amazing. I love that. And as well, I wanted to downsize. Some of you have heard me talk about this in other episodes. I was living in a 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom house. I had a guest room. I had a separate office. I had all this space to host workshops and stuff. And I decided I didn't want my home to function as my workspace, my hosting, my workshop space. I just wanted a little place for me. I wanted to, I don't know, maybe it's the New Yorker in me. I wanted to be in a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment. And I am now, and it's so cozy, and I love it. And when people come over, they're like, it's such a feminine, cozy space. It feels like a womb. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to feel like literally every time I walk into my apartment, I'm like, I just take a deep breath and it feels so good. I took some space from my work this year. Back in May, when I retired the original Wild Soul Movement program, and as well when I decided I didn't want to do that trust assessment thing anymore, obviously I'm super fortunate to have been building other things in my business to sustain me financially, but I needed some space. I needed the space so the next iteration of Wild Soul Movement, which is now Power, could emerge, and it did. And that took about 4 months. And it happened just like I knew it would because I've been practicing surrender and trust through the Wild Soul Movement practice for years now. It's just my natural operating system now. It was like, give it space and it'll come. And that's what happened. And I didn't really struggle with the uncertainty. It just felt good. And I just knew when the time was right, it would pop back in. And I got a tattoo this year back in June that said, allow, comma, beloved, ... Some of you have probably seen pictures on Instagram. And the reason for that, I have 3, this is my 3rd tattoo, very small tattoos. I don't have a lot of pain tolerance for tattoos. Like all of my tattoos are small and dainty. I have one on my left wrist that I designed myself. That's a symbol. It's a heart with an infinity symbol. It means love is infinite. And I have the triple goddess symbol, the waning, waxing, and full moon on my left foot to remind me to be guided by the wisdom of those archetypes of the goddess, of the divine mother. And then on my left bicep, I have allow, comma, beloved. And to me, the word allow, I knew I needed that tattooed on me because it encompasses the combination of both surrender and trust, allowing. And it also encompasses a lot of what I've been talking about already, the patience, as well as relinquishing control anywhere in my life, which is something I've been working on for many, many years. I'm much better at it now than I ever have been, but it still creeps in. It crept in intensely earlier this year when I started dating, because I noticed in my business, in my life, with my body, with other things, in my personal relationships, the control thing wasn't that big of an issue anymore. But once I started dating again, I was like, this is where it creeps up. And so allow encompasses surrender and trust. The comma, beloved, was to feel each time I look at it as if the words are coming from God or some divine being that loves me and supports me unconditionally. And then the ... the ellipse, represents that there's so much more to come, much of which is beyond my imagining. So I love this tattoo. I love it very much. Something else this year, my goodness, and those of you who listen to the podcast know this, and you've been with me on this journey. I appreciate you so much for that. Was continuing to unpack narcissism, emotional abuse, and gaslighting, which is something I dealt with intensively in my last relationship. As well, realizing how that unpacking and healing was directly related to unpacking and healing from whiteness, privilege, and white supremacy, and other oppressive conditioning that we've been talking about a lot on the show, that, that we all take on growing up in this culture. I was chatting with former podcast guests, and she'll be back at the end of this month, actually, at the end of December 31st. Laren Alta will be back on the show. Laren is someone who's become a dear friend over the last year or so, and we were talking about how these things function exactly the same. White supremacy functions just like narcissism, right? All this, it's all oppressive conditioning. It's all abuse. It's abusive. They operate the same way. So unpacking both of these things simultaneously, while it's been intense, has also been really efficient. And I'll celebrate something with you here. This was amazing. I went on a date the other night with a narcissist. I didn't obviously know that before the date, but 5 minutes into the date, I knew the guy wasn't for me. Like, the energy was already crunchy. Like, he even noticed it and, called it out a few minutes in. He was like, I'm so attracted to you, but this is, so not flowing. And I'm like, yeah. And we stuck it out for, another hour. We were chatting and whatever. I was curious to be in the energy, to feel it out and through, and also to hold my own, to have some boundaries, to not get sucked into his nonsense. He was really quite aggressive. And afterwards, when he texted me, it was extremely clear that he was a narcissist. So I just blocked him. I blocked him. I didn't tell him. I didn't say anything. I just literally, as soon as it was crystal clear, I just went right into the contact on my phone, blocked it, and that was that. I didn't owe this man anything, and I just moved on. And so the celebration here is that the last time I dated a narcissistic person, it took me almost 3 years to figure it out. So this week, 1 date, and I knew, and I was out. It feels like a massive, massive win. So those are some of my own personal reflections this year related to these questions. What worked and what didn't? What's really working right now and what isn't? What did I learn about myself, life, people? What themes did I intend to emerge? So going into this year, I didn't really have a theme, but the theme that emerged almost immediately was full expression. And so that has come through on this show, changing the name to Truth Telling from Untamed the Wild Soul, through the topics we cover, through social media, a couple of the writing devotionals I did this year on social media, even in dating, in my body. I started doing stand-up comedy this year. Talk about a form of expression. And here's what I want to wrap up on. And you'll see this in practice over the course of the next 5 episodes after this one in this series. I really believe, and again, there's so many things that we hear, and until they apply to us and until we're in our own experience of it, they don't fully land. But Brene Brown, whose work I reference often and has deeply impacted me, talks about creativity, talks about needing creativity. And I need this creative expression. I realized how therapeutic, like even having this podcast, I talked about learning the transcendental meditation so I can manage everything that's constantly coming through and pouring through me. But even having this, being able to do things like this, to have the Patreon where I can just share whatever I'm thinking in a more intimate way, to be able to interview people about things that I'm curious about, right? I don't have to be the expert on everything. I can find someone who is, and I can learn in real time and share it with you. Those are all ways for me that help me truly navigate my mental and emotional health, because through the creative expression, I'm able to process. I'm able to reflect and learn and integrate. And so stand-up comedy this year is just nourishing me. It's like therapy. Because listen, the context of stand-up comedy is a bit different than the context of like my personal work. Healing, growth, and transformation requires a lot more nuance and complexity and consideration and intentionality. Comedy, it's a different, I can say more stuff. I can dance on the line of being offensive because things are jokes, right? And still focus on not dehumanizing people, not demoralizing anyone, not being cruel, but there's a lengthier rope. I can play a little bit more. I could be a little more vulgar. It's funny. I've been noticing I curse a lot on stage. It just comes out. I think it's like my inner Staten Island. That's what I've been saying. Like that inner Staten Island, that New Yorker. She comes out quite a bit on stage. And I just let her because it's a part of me. I don't need to reject her. I don't need to make her bad. I can just find the appropriate environment for her. So that's been so, so fun. I'm excited to do more of that next year as well. By the way, if you're in Los Angeles, I am doing my first stand-up show at a real comedy club on December 6th at Flappers in Burbank. I think it's a 9:30 start. So if you want to come see me, come. I'd love to meet you. So, all right, y'all. How'd we do? Episode 1 of 6, Journey into the Wild Soul. Little recap. There is a pop-up Facebook group that you can find by going to wildsoulmovement.com/popupfb. You can join that. It's free between now, November 19th, and December 29th here in 2018. You can get on the wait list to get all of the announcements about the Power Circle and my Wild Soul Movement weekend workshops by going to wildsoulmovement.com/waitlist. And then if you want the show notes from this episode, you can head over to untameyourself.com/281. As always, thank you so much for being with me. Thank you for joining me here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for inviting your friends to share with you. I meet so many of you when I do my workshops who are like, I've put all my friends onto your podcast. Some people use it as kind of like a book club, which is adorable to imagine you sitting around with your friends discussing the latest episodes or the interviews or whatever. So thank you for that. I've been super loving seeing you all in the Insta stories, post pictures of the episodes and telling me what you've been loving. So keep that up. I want to know. I'm nosy. I pay attention. You might have noticed, right? I pay attention also to what resonates with you. And in 2019, some of you have seen me talk about this on social media. I'm really not going to be interviewing many coaches anymore. I'm really wanting to expand my capacity as an interviewer and the subject matter and the things, truth telling. One of the reasons I chose that name earlier this year is to expand what we could talk about here. So many things are included there, and I really want to get out of as much focus on the self-help and personal development industry and just look at other things, social sciences, creativity. I'm meeting so many people here as I do comedy, people who do amazing, incredible things in LA, activists, authors, all kinds of other things, even people in technology. Like, we're going to stretch in 2019. We're really going to continue to expand our hearts, our minds, be open, see what's interesting, see what's inspiring. So, all right. That's enough for now. I love you all. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week. You were saying something about that tall poppy syndrome. What is that, if anyone listening doesn't know?
So it's really, it's part of the vernacular in Australian society, and I think the United Kingdom. It's really that experience of being too tall, too much, too beautiful, too brilliant, too. And you need to get cut down to size, sugar. You need to get cut down to size. And it's very visceral, and it's, and I have days of things that I want to say about that because it is so extremely painful to experience it. And I think even more painful is that unconsciously we've contributed to it. So I think about this in the context of, I talk about we canonize people and then we demonize people, right? Ooh. So we do this kind of bell curve of, putting people up on a pedestal. And then when they start to zig when we want them to zag, we cut them down, we demonize them. And again, it's pretty unconscious. And I think it's I can feel it in my chest as I say, I think this is one of the biggest reasons people are afraid of success, because they have, ancient recollections of having this happen to them, and they've seen where they've participated in it too.